if you missed it in the morning. Here is the best of the Big Breakfast on Racing Radio.
It's not afraid to have a comment. It's an absolute pleasure to have him on the Big Breakfast on Racing Radio this Tuesday morning. He's a regular on the show. We hear him with his Black Booker segment each and every Monday, and our Racing with the Stars special guest for this week is Race Track Ralph Horowitz. Ralphie, great to have you on the program. How are you this Tuesday morning?
Oh, good morning, boys. Just a pleasure to be asked to know that I'm number 5. I know you had Gay Waterhouse, Robbie Waterhouse, John Singlewood and Alan Robinson booked, but it's good to be number 5. I'm delighted.
That circus continues.
It is all happening.
I'll tell you what, Wes, I'm just looking at my life, really. I just realised I'm neither a former footballer, a former jockey or a brothel owner, so I don't think I'm anyone in life.
Well, you've done a little bit of everything along the way, though, Ralphie. Let's tell our listeners a little bit about how it all started off for you, Ralphie. You've been, as I touched on yesterday when we spoke to you, many people wouldn't be aware of your life outside of racing, but you were a key component of the Footy Show going back many years ago, one of the most popular programs on Australian television for many, many years. Talk us through how that all kicked off for you, getting involved with the Footy Show.
Oh, look, it was like being with the Beatles there at one stage. It was just absolutely unbelievable how big it was. I started in 96, which was the 3rd year of the Footy Show. I'd literally been a tradesman during the week, and I was doing found a little spot for myself on a Saturday morning Triple M show called The Grill Team, and it was Eddie Maguire, Trev Marmalade and Jane Kennedy, and a whole bunch of others would pop in, and I was one of those that I'd give a couple of racing tips, somehow wangle my way in the door, and Eddie said to me, would you like to get a job at the Footy Show just doing stats? So it wasn't real hard to set fire to the overalls and go from working at a building site to working at the biggest TV show in the country.
Outstanding. And so what exactly did you do at the Footy Show from that point heading forward?
I got my foot in the door through doing just steady stats, actually. So I think Andrew Shostak was prior to me, got a guy there, I think ended up at Fox. He used to organise basically his Manila folder, if you like. So, and you know, 96, I think the internet hadn't really kicked in, so it was actually a fair bit of, slog research and bringing up and so forth, so a lot of notes to be done, but they knew I sort of had a reasonable sense of humour and knew more than just being a footy nut. I was sort of more about entertainment side of things, and I managed to get my way from working my way through after, I think it's called up, going from doing Ed Stats to being Sam's producer, which I was for the majority of my time there.
Gee, that would have been interesting being his right-hand man. There would have been a fair bit of humour there.
Oh, look, absolutely. Peel back Sam Newman, and bear in mind I was probably, say, 6 or 7 of my 9 years there. I was his right-hand man, and so I'd do his opening stuff and the street talk segment, the mailbag, and so we travelled a lot together. And peel him back, and he was at one footy club for 18 years, where he was a Hall of Fame member of the AFL, and he's been at one TV station for 22 years. So he's actually a deeply loyal bloke. He plays a character, but I would never have a bad word to say about him at any stage. And he's a different dude. Don't worry about that. But he's a real good man.
Is Sam Newman, who we see on TV, Sam Newman when the cameras aren't on?
Well, he's probably even funnier off camera, but he knows he plays a character, and so he's happy to. I reckon I've sort of summed him up this way, that I reckon he's been the only star in Australian television history that's happy to completely and utterly throw himself on a grenade, if you like, for the show. He's happy to be the idiot. He'll say things to panel members, and bear in mind when he this came in, he was absolutely at the forefront of doing this. And his first bloke was Doug Hawkins, and he'd come up with things for Jason Dunstall and other stuff that happened on the Footy Show that he would make himself the absolute butt of the joke. And I don't think there's been any other TV star that's been prepared to do that. And I'm talking about from the Graham Kennedy stuff, or the pioneering stuff of the 60s and 70s, where he is happy to make the fool of himself as long as he makes the show better. So he's actually, in that way, he's quite a selfless bloke.
Ralph, were you involved with the show? I watched Open Mic a couple of weeks ago, and Shorty and myself both spoke about David Schwartz. Were you on the set then when he cream pied him?
Yeah, absolutely I was. Sorry about that. It nearly cost me a trip to London, because the next 2 weeks we were going to London. I'm trying to work out how much I want to say publicly, because not because I care less, but more about the mistake of it all. But if you Google Ralph Horowitz, David Schwartz and Michael Davis, you'd probably get the truth out of it, because Michael Davis was writing for the Australian at the time, and it was the only bloke actually get the truth. Eddie didn't know what was happening. I seem to recall a few other people did.
All right, well, that's left us none too wiser. It was
Eddie, I'll say this on my kid's life. Eddie didn't know what was happening.
all right. It was all happening. It was all happening, and Sam pulled up a little bit sore because Shortte didn't enjoy the treatment too much. He mentioned on open mic that the prior time when the boys had brought out a present, it was a legitimate present, and he wasn't quite ready for the big wacko, and Sam accordingly went home a bit sore that night.
I noticed he said he wasn't ready for it on open mic. He did say that.
So he knew it was coming.
Eddie didn't know what was happening on the set.
No, of course not. Hey, Ralph.
No one promise you Eddie didn't know, but I'm not saying that anyone else didn't know.
Ralph, whereabouts did you grow up?
I grew up in Caulfield. That's how I got into my horse racing, actually, in very, very literal terms. That when other kids in the 70s and 80s had a paper round, I was mucking out boxes before school. So it could be said that instead of picking it up, I now talk it.
I think it'd be somewhere near the mark, Ralphie. So what trainers, were there particular trainers that you work for, or just generic, just go around and help out whoever was on track?
No, there was a Brian Ralph who had some nice horses called Penny Edition and Keepers and Whole Sam. They sort of, in the early 80s, they were all Group 1 winners. And actually John Hawkes was good mates with Brian Ralph, and he used to leave his horses there when he would travel to Melbourne. And I remember English Wonder, who not only won a Group 1, but was the later dam of Dr. Grace. Written Wonder, a whole heap of real good horses that Hawksy brought over. And he's when I was about 16, I met his young son Wayne at 14. So Wayne and I go way back, and basically he owes me for the rest of my life, and I'm not sure why, but I just try and leave that on him. But I know him when he was a teenager, and he knows me.
Yeah, nice. So from that, you picked that up at a young age. I'm tipping it didn't take you too long to transfer from mucking the yards out to realising I've got a bit of money in my pocket, and I'm hearing the odd whisper when I go around and muck these things out that a horse or two could run all right on race day. How long did it take you to twig that you could get a bit of an earn out of having a punt on race day?
Well, you tried to keep the information out, your ears open, and I ended up spent a year with Kevin Curtin, who was Lloyd Williams' trainer back in the early 80s, in the mid-80s rather, and a year with Mick Crawford. And I took a horse when I was 18 to Adelaide called Testimony, who won a Mackay Stakes, a very good sprinter. So, yeah, I was able to enjoy that and hear, the racetrack whispers, but I've got to say, this almost relates back to the more joyous thing from back then to this week. Since doing my form really, really seriously over the past few years, I now actually don't want to hear anyone's whispers. I reckon the best way to do form is just trust yourself, because, about 5 years ago it cost me a massive quantity. I got a little bit of it, but a massive. I was going to one out this horse, and someone said, found out it didn't work real well during the week, and it was absolutely genuine information, but my opinion was it was going to win, and after that I thought, well, I'd rather be wrong with my own opinion than wrong on someone else's. So all that racetrack whispers, I think, actually, in a general sense, is pretty overrated.
So true. Just touching on Kevin Curtin for a moment, did he train a horse called Nearest?
He did. Nearest had the record for the most amount of wins at Sandown. I reckon that was the late 70s. I was there in the mid-80s, so he had Knight of Avon, and I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. But he always had some handy horses, and I looked after a ripping old grey horse called Muffler, who was one of the favourites for Tosca and for Lloyd Williams. So it's sort of funny that I got to strap for Lloyd when I was about 16 or 17, and now I'm occasionally doing stuff at the Crown, and I did at the Crown when Lloyd was running it.
Outstanding. What a great name for a horse, Muffler.
Yeah, he was a ripper too. He won 100,000, which I reckon put in today's money would be about 800,000 or 900,000. So, and he won it all four city tracks. He's one of those rippers that turned up and ran well.
Ralphie, what did you do initially to start off in the media, in the racing industry? How many different jobs did you put yourself around early days?
Look, I actually, I bumped into someone at the pub who was doing a community radio show, and I just cracked some gags at the bar, and they said, you can join our show. So it was just community radio on a Friday night while I literally had the overalls on, and then I started to think that maybe I could work out how to make a living out of this, and from there I managed to get a sponsored segment on the grill team, as I was saying earlier, and there's actually not a bad story. My actual breakthrough was in '95 when at Melbourne Cup Day, the grill team was trying to go national. Triple M thought that they could, Melbourne and Sydney radio could merge, which I think they were one of about 700 stations that have since failed at doing that. But they had this idea to have the grill team around the country. So, you know, they had David Caruso and all these amazing stars were in town for the Melbourne Cup, and I was at I was about to use a word I shouldn't use, but I was the spare man, let's just say. So I ran into the mounting yard, and Damien Oliver had been a guest on the Derby show, and Eddie at the time had a phrase called "It's good for footy." So Damien said, "If I win the Melbourne Cup, I'll say it's good for racing." Anyway, he wins the Melbourne Cup. I had a house brick mobile on me back in '95, of course, that's what it was. And I said, let's cross to me, I'll get Damien Oliver for you. He stepped off the scales, and I had said to the doorman, I've got Damien's mum on the phone from Perth. And he goes, oh, okay. And of course, I've completely lied through my teeth. Walked straight in. Ollie's literally taken one step, they're looking at it on camera, got off the scales and said, Eddie, how's that? That's good for racing, isn't it? So the Triple M people were over the moon, and from there, Eddie pulled me aside and said, I'll look after you, I'll get you a job. And that's how I got my job at the Footy Show. So I owe Ollie for the rest of my life.
Wow, there you go. Jeez. It's good for racing, and that terminology has stuck around from there on in. So a great result, Ralphie, and from there you've really gone on with it. The Footy Show, obviously from there and radio, but it opened doors for a lot of other opportunities within the media, and from there you've won several media awards, Amy Derby Day Best Radio Coverage, VRC Best Australian Cup Coverage, and 3 other highly commended awards from the MRC. For that to happen, you've obviously got some opportunities in other forums as well.
Well, what I was really proud of was I was able to bring racing to people that weren't normally listening to racing radio, and you know, now ironically I'm on RSN over here, which is the racing radio station. I'm doing it only on the racing area, but I'm doing it on Triple M, and I did it on the ABC. I was doing it before Gerard Whateley started doing it, you know, all the time, and obviously become such a master of his craft. But I was just looking for those type of opportunities, and to be honest, in the late 90s, it was really frustrating me that racing administrators weren't seeing what value we were giving by, you know, putting them on the Triple M's of the world, because all of a sudden, you know, people listening to this station now, or RSN over here, or 2KY, Sky Sports Radio, whatever it's called, you know, you've already got them. They're racing people. They can't consume enough racing information. But, you know, a minute on Triple M, and I'm talking about when it was rating 20 back then, compared to, you know, any other type of exposure, was just gold. And you know, it was translating into people all of a sudden say, well, I'll go have $5 or $10 each way on this tip, rather than it just all being about, you know, fashion and a party and a drink-a-thon, because as we know, when the party finishes, you go home. But if you have $5 or $10 each way on something and it wins, you think, oh, this is a bit of fun, I'll do this regularly. So to me, it was about growing wagering and interest in the sport that way. And I think that it's probably been proven right, because now they can't spend enough money on the FM stations and other areas to broaden the appeal of the sport.
You're dead right there. We'll talk about a couple of the gigs. Firstly, you spent a couple of years at SEN.
Yeah, well, the SEN experiment was really interesting. I started a Saturday morning show. Craig Hutchison had bought the time slot, and he's now Hutchie's now running his own media company called Croc Media. So this was prior to that, and he said, "Could you put together a Saturday morning show?" So I got it with an old mate called Steve Marshall, or Sergio Paradise was his name, and he was part of the original grill team. And I approached a proud fan group called Scotty Cummings. And he just retired that year, and he said he was staying in Melbourne and was going to see what was happening. And I actually don't remember saying this to Scotty, but he swears that black and blue that I did. So I had a coffee with him, and I said, look, I actually don't want an absolute superstar like a Steve Silvani. I want someone that people think they can have a beer with. So I thought that was complimentary, but he took it as an insult. Anyway, we did it together. So for 2 years, we had a Saturday morning show called Ralphie, Serge and the Big Man, and we would just ask the most irrelevant, softest questions you could ever ask anyone. And what we ended up doing was we got everyone in there, because they knew that come in, have a fair laugh, and it's a bit sort of, if you like, how the before the game crew you know, talk to people. And later on that year, I just realised I just had enough of the Footy Show. I'd been there for 9 years, and I was just the direction of the show was frustrating me a bit, because Eddie was making it more serious, and as proven by the fact that a year later he went to be CEO of the Nine Network, and Sam wanted it more silly, and I was obviously in Sam's corner, and opportunity came up to produce the breakfast show. So I said I just put my nose in at Nine and went and produced the breakfast show there, which I thought was a good move until it went into liquidation about a year later. I thought that's probably not the best move.
Didn't quite go to plan from there.
Exactly.
But from there, Ralphie, you continue to find different opportunities, and where you certainly sprung to prominence from a WA perspective, given that we don't access a lot of the East Coast radio style of stuff, is on TVN on a program called Get On, which is very much a punter's program where, gee, some of the laughs you got through that program were just marvellous, and that's where I was first exposed to Race Track Ralphy. And there were two things that you did extremely well on the program, and that is get people in by telling some great jokes, and then bang, once they were hooked, you kept them hooked by finding them winners. And they were two really important parts of the makeup of that program. And no slight on the rest of the guys on the show, but since you've left, it just hasn't had the same chemistry, in my opinion. I was really disappointed when I heard that your contract hadn't been renewed. First of all, it looked like you were having an absolute ball when you were on the program.
Yeah, I was. And look, it come from, my Footy Show background was all part of the stuff that I was trying to bring to that show. And we were having a ball. Jason Richardson was the bloke I got to start with that I gave him a start at SEN, doing a breakfast spot on the breakfast show. And we became great mates, and we still are great mates. But sometimes network politics get the better of you. I was getting $250 a week to turn up and have a laugh and tip some winners. But knowing that I had my app to promote, it was worth it for me to not get paid much, if you know what I mean, because of the greater exposure that it gave. And from tipping winners' point of view, look, and again going back to even to the stuff that we're talking about this week, there's no substitute for hard work. I know how much time I put into it, and I was lucky, but in that, and under the pretext of the harder that you work, the luckier you get. But I pulled off a couple of huge odds tips early, which got me my spot in there. And I work harder than probably just about everyone, and with the exception of, the great like Dean Lester. But what I do is try and learn from how hard Dean works, and not from newspaper journalists who are basically there to write stories. And good on them, no fight against them, but I know how hard I work, and I was able to find a few winners, and I think some of the jealousy ended up costing me my spot there, to be frank, in other areas of the TVN management.
Probably one of the hardest things to do, isn't it? I don't think people understand the amount of time that's put into form, and it's not just form, Ralph, but it's replays, trial replays. It never stops, and probably 3/4 of the time spent studying a race meeting is purely that side of it, the form aspect, and race day's the easy part.
Well, it is, and the stuff I do spend a lot of time writing, probably too much time writing, but my passion, both from, talking to you guys or the stuff I originally did on Triple M was trying to get more people interested in racing. So sometimes I can get a bit verbose in my writing, but that's because I find the sport really interesting, but it's also the type of sport with, as you were saying, the more time you put in, the more interesting it gets. So from that point of view, not every race is Black Caviar, but to me, Black Caviar was the greatest horse I've ever seen, but she wasn't interesting from a betting perspective. so that's why I find the sport interesting, trying to figure out the tactics, and if you get it right, it's a bit of a buzz.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of Black Caviar, when she came out and was first seen in her vest, her special vest that was done up, it's a moment that I don't think I'll ever be able to erase from my memory banks. You rolled up in the similar, tight as you like, skin style set up, a la Black Caviar, some of the most disturbing television I think I've ever seen.
No, exactly. Well, look, I know that a lot of Hollywood celebrities have really emblazoned on the high-protein diet, and I realised then that probably my high-carbohydrate diet wasn't really the way to go, and sometimes, high beer diet. So all those things really came to fruition when I put on the Lycra. But, yes, happy to make a go of myself, had a bit of fun, but more to the point, how privileged we were to see her, and I got a trip to the UK out of it. Took a bunch of real good people over to the UK and got paid to do it. So it's unbelievable what she's done for racing all around the world.
Ralph, tell us about your time at 3AW.
Yeah, it was the classic. Everything went right to the point that when one thing went wrong, I was just given the kyber. And what happened? I got approached while I was at SEN, and you think, well, you got to do the right thing by your family. And I had one. I think my boy was 1.5, and my wife was pregnant, so it's the second coming. And my SEN had just gone into liquidation. I thought, well, this is probably not a real good thing as a family man. And Jared Healy said, do you want to, I reckon I can get you over to AW. So they were struggling. Dwayne Russell was not quite getting the chemistry right with Jared, and in fairness to him, he was still sort of seen as the fill-in for the late great David Hooks. And at the time, the footy coverage was just completely shot. It was just so boring and old style. So I thought we could, there was an opportunity there to get it going, and to the point where I got offered a massive bonus if I could somehow knock off Triple M, because I didn't think I could. And the 2006, I recruited Craig Hutchison over. I figured with the AM signal is obviously not the bonus that the FM signal is, and I was an original reporter for Triple M Footy when it started, so I certainly knew both sides of it. We still had Gary Lyon at the time, so I thought, well, we can bump up the news angle of it, and 3AW ultimately is a news station, so it was Hutchie, Caroline Wilson, Gary Lyon, Mike Sheehan, you know, so we bumped up the news. We won everything in 2006, got the big promotion, had one bad survey, got the flick, so we can't be any more transparent than that. Went to court, but ultimately lost my career over it.
Wow, it's a cutthroat industry, Ralphy.
Well, you know, what actually happens is that, you know, there are scapegoats in life, and I was one. So the only place you can't bounce back from is from the other side of the ground. And, you know, at the time, a bloke I worked with, who I think is easily the best caller I've ever seen in Australian media, Clinton Grievous, well, you know, somehow 6 months later he's no longer with us, and it's still unexplained to this day. So you can bounce back from anywhere except from where Clinton is, the late great Clinton, and that's just the attitude I took. So there you go. You
mentioned earlier on you're with RSN now, doing the Ego Hour with Shane Anderson. That'd be a bit of humour.
Well, it is, and I say this, I'm not sucking up to anyone, but I say this with genuine sincerity. I can't believe that I've been given an opportunity in the racing media to walk in and be really opinionated, and it's a matter of good timing in this one, because they genuinely let me say whatever I want. You know, obviously you have to be fair, you have to show that you got the racing industry at heart, but, you know, when in previous years, and I don't know what battles you guys have over there, but, you know, the racing administrators have previously thought, let's smother all publicity, whereas now I think where media is going is it's about opinion, because news comes out straight away in this world of Twitter and the internet and Facebook and everything else. So where the opportunity is in analysis. So I was able to say what I thought of their RVL's handling of the Damien Oliver situation without fear nor favour last year. So we do it from that angle, from an honest news perspective and from a form perspective, but equally, yeah, we try and have a lot of fun too, because, you know, it keeps going back to my foundation of what I spent so much time at with the Footy Show. It wasn't just about Sam being silly, it was about Eddie breaking stories, and if you got light and shade, you got a chance of getting people on board.
I think you've got to realise too, with any entertainment program, you have to keep people entertain for an extended period and try and maintain their concentration. If you're just hardcore news, raw data, people switch off. But if you do have the ability to maintain it, keep it a bit entertaining, keep some humour, you're a rough hope to keep them switched on and focused on what you're saying for an extended period of time.
Absolutely right, and you know, and because people, my belief, particularly in radio, maybe a tiny bit less so in TV, but people want to, you know, John Blackman once told me, I'm not dropping names, like when you work at Channel 9, you get to meet very interesting and good people, but John Blackman once said about some radio work and gave me some great advice. You're not talking to thousands of people, you're talking to one person thousands of time, because generally it's one person in the car. So people want to feel like they're laughing along with an intimate conversation, which I'm sure you guys do, and that's always been my belief.
Love it, Ralphie, and the good times are set to continue on. As we know, you join us for the Black Bookers, but you also have the Race Track Ralphie app, which many of our listeners have availed themselves of in recent times. It's free to download, and then they pay per meeting, $4.49. How's it all going since setting it up? Obviously, it's continued to build and grow. How have you found it? Is it something that's been worthwhile?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and again, it comes back to my passion that people want to get the information. And all I do, I picture what I used to be, and that working hard during the week, all of a sudden on a Friday, who's running tomorrow? I'm trying to picture that bloke is my target market for this app, and of course that bloke is not a gender-specific term. You know, if anyone wants to feel like all of a sudden having a bet, they know when they see my stuff that I've done a power of work. Will I get it right and wrong? Well, you know, sometimes it's the bob of the head or whatever, but they know that when they get my stuff, I've done a heap of work, and then from there they can make their own choices, and I'll get it right and wrong. But I'm happy with the price point now. It's reflective of how much time I put in, but I had to keep the price very low at first to get people to sample it. And from now on, if people want to buy it, it's up to them, and that's the price point. And you know, we're finding a few winners, seeing them all right. But as I said, it's all about the information coming across the punters, and I'll never cut corners there.
Yeah, no, that's important. And what it does do for people that haven't availed themselves of it, it gives you a bit of everything, a rundown on each of the runners for each race. It gives you a quaddie breakdown for the day, which is always very appealing for a lot of people, because regularly you get the opportunity to win a lot without having to necessarily spend a lot, and best bets on the card, which is ideal. It breaks it down. And as you said, for people that haven't got the time to spend 20 or 30 hours a week breaking down, going through all of the form, it's done for them.
Yeah, that's exactly the intention. I know there are guys, and I'm talking about good people, not rubbish tipping services that are shonks. I'm talking about real good geniuses, and they charge about $30 to $50 range. So I just thought that this is a happy medium, around about the $5 mark. It is for punters who probably bet, I picture people at $20 to $50, in that range. And if they want to have a bet on a Saturday and they've got the money to spend, and of course always gamble responsibly, as I'm sure you push throughout the week, enjoy the time, and hopefully I can find you a winner.
And just one other thing before you go. He's got his last show with us this Thursday because his job's just becoming very, very hectic. But Josh Rodder, a great man over here, spent some time in the West. You've been great friends with Josh for many years, and I believe you're involved in his wedding as well.
I emceed his wedding. That was, and you know what? I just keep it between us. He still hasn't paid me for it.
Check's in the mail, Ralphie.
That's it. No, absolutely. But I've known both our parents are about their sets of parents are family friends and long-time family friends. I've known Josh since we were both very young fellas, and he's been a fantastic success story. And what Tully is now doing as a bit of a pioneer is just absolute tribute to both of them.
Yeah, they're absolute rippers, as are you, Ralphie. We love having you on our program, and we really appreciate you joining us as our Racing with the Stars special guest this Tuesday morning. Continued success. We'll catch up with you again next Monday. Many winners to you for the rest of the week.
Look forward to it, boys. Much appreciated.
Keep finding the winners, Ralphie.
Race Track Ralph Horowitz here on the Big Breakfast on Racing Radio.
On Racing Radio.